So we've already introduced factoring out greatest common factors, and now we're going to go into how to factor a trinomial. Now, what I mean by a trinomial, you should already know that is a expression that has three terms in it. In this case, our most common one looks like this: x squared plus 3x plus 2, right here. Now, trinomials have a standard form. It's kind of like a formula. You'll see that above it with the ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, now, this is like the formula y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, it's the same kind of deal. The a is the coefficient in front of the x squared, the b is the coefficient in front of the x, the c is the constant that is at the end, the number that doesn't have a variable with it. So you need to make sure that you can identify which one's which. In this trinomial, if nothing's written in front of the x squared, then the coefficient is 1, so a equals 1, b equals 3, and c equals 2. So we're going to be factoring this trinomial. I'm going to show you how to go from what we have here back to what you would have multiplied together to get it. In this case, it'd be x plus 2 times x plus 1. So you'll see on the left side that I have multiplied out x plus 3 times x plus 4. Those are the factors, okay? When you multiply them out, you get x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. Combine your two terms in the middle, and you get x squared plus 7x plus 12. What I want to talk about is the relationship between the numbers in the factors and the numbers in the problem. So when we factor, or when we multiply this out by distributive property, we end up with 4x plus 3x in the middle that we're going to combine to give us 7x. What do you notice is the relationship between the numbers 3 and 4 and what we did? What you should notice is that in order to get the 7x, we actually ended up adding the two numbers that are in the factor. Okay, so your middle term, b, is always the two numbers in the factors added together. What about the 12? Where did this 12 come from? When we were multiplying out, that 12 came from our last distribution. We did 3 times 4. Now that's always going to be true. C is always the two numbers of the factor multiplied. Okay? So I'm going to use this same problem to go backwards. So your answer is always going to be, especially for these at least, x plus or minus something and times x plus or minus something. Because remember, we're going backwards. Ooh, I don't know what's going on there. That's supposed to be a plus 12. All right, so what we just talked about is that rule where we know that the two numbers are going to multiply to give us C, and they're going to add to give us B. Okay, that is your big rule that you have to know here. Remember, these are when A is equal to 1. That's the term in front of the x squared. All right, now, we need two numbers that multiply to give us C. In this case, C is 12. We need two numbers that add to give us B, which is 7. Notice both of these numbers are positive. So if we've got to find two numbers that multiply to give us positive 12 and add to give us positive 7, then those two numbers must be positive. So we're looking for two positive numbers that multiply to give us positive 12 and add to give us 7. So let's go through starting with the number 1 and divide everything by 12 and find all of our factors that could be possible. So we know we've got positive 1 times positive 12. The problem is those add up to be positive 13. So that does not fit the bill that goes here. Okay, so can't be that. 12 divided by 2 would be 6, but 6 plus 2 equals 8. So dang, that can't be it either. 12 divided by 3 gives me 4, and 3 plus 4 equals 7. Those are my two numbers. That means 4 times 3 gives me 12, 4 plus 3 gives me 7. Your two numbers have to fit both of those. So we plug those two numbers in as our factors, x plus 4, x plus 3. If I were to multiply this out by distribution, which I'm not going to do to save time, I would get back, as we know from over here, x squared plus 7x plus 12. Now, the hardest part about this is actually finding those two numbers, okay? So I'm going to really focus on that as I go through 4 examples. So here we have an example of x squared plus 2x plus 1. Now, your first thought should be, I need two numbers that multiply to give me c and add to give me b. So in this case, my c is positive 1, my b is positive 2. Now, we're going to be fighting with positive and negative numbers here. So first thing I want to talk about is, since both numbers add up to be a positive number and multiply to give a positive number, your two numbers must both be positive. Okay, that's both positive. Sorry, it's a little messy. All right, so we need two positive numbers that multiply to give me 1 and have to add to give me 2. Well, this one's actually really easy because the only two numbers that multiply to give me 1 are 1 and 1, and they add up to be 2. So my numbers that fit this are both positive 1, so my answer is x plus 1 times x plus 1. All right, let's jump down here and look at our next one. So here again, we've got x squared minus 6x plus 9. We know that we have to find two numbers that multiply to give us c and add to give us b. In this case, c is positive 9 and b is negative 6. Okay, now we've thrown a negative number in here. So I want you to think about this. What signs would our two numbers have to have if they're going to multiply to give us a positive number and add to give us a negative number? The only way that we can get a positive number when we're multiplying is that either both numbers have to be negative or both numbers have to be positive. Well, if they're going to add up to give us a negative number, that means that they can't both be positive, so they both have to be negative. So we are looking for two negative numbers that multiply to give us 9. So start with 1, negative 1 times negative 9, but that gives me negative 10, so nope, that's not going to work. 9 isn't divisible by 2, so I can skip over that one. Negative 3 times negative 3, and look, that adds up to be negative 6. So my two numbers are negative 3 times negative 3, negative 3 plus negative 3. So I know that my answer is x minus 3 times x minus 3. If you multiply that out, you get x squared minus 3x plus 9. Combine your like terms and you get x squared minus 6x plus 9. So here's another example, x squared minus 2x minus 8. So our c is negative 8 and our b is negative 2. All right, if we're multiplying to get a negative number, that means that we have to have one negative number and one positive number. Which one's going to be bigger? The sign of the ones that are added together is the one that's going to be bigger. So our bigger number is going to have to be negative and our smaller number is going to have to be positive. So numbers that multiply to give us negative 8. So let's start off with negative 8 times 1. That adds up to be negative 7. That's not the number we're looking for. Negative 8 divided by 2. It's supposed to be negative 4 divided by 2, That adds up to give us negative 2, and that is the number that we are looking for. So we found them. Negative 4 times 2 gives me 8. Negative 4 plus 2 gives me negative 2. So my two factors are x minus 4, x plus 2. If you don't have the right signs, your answer will be wrong. So you really have to pay attention to those signs. And let's do one more. X squared plus 4x minus 5. C is negative 5. B is positive 4. All right, so we know that our numbers have to be negative and positive. Okay, and this time the bigger number is going to be positive. So two numbers that multiply to give me negative 5 and add to give me 4. So start off with 1. And so that would be the negative, then plus 5. Those add together to give me a positive 4. Look, that one was easy. I got it on the first try. So my two numbers are negative 1 and 5. So my two factors are -1, +5. And that's how you do these over and over again.